Well, Sean, our next guest is a billionaire and a businessman and the co-founder of a private equity firm, the Carlyle Group. He's also a philanthropist who has donated over $600 million of his own wealth to charity. He knows a thing or two about success and leadership and says you create your own luck by working hard and being persistent. And he's got a new book out called How to Lead: Wisdom from the World's Greatest CEOs, Founders, and Game Changers, featuring interviews and conversations with some of the globe's most successful leaders. We now welcome David Rubenstein. David, good to see you, and congratulations on the new book.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
You know, David, I got my copy. I love it. The thing that I found so interesting about the book is as I was reading about you and your career and how you got into founding the Carlyle Group, going from the Carter White House to doing this new thing of founding a private equity firm in Washington, D.C., of all places, and the adversity you faced getting that off the ground and obviously becoming amazingly successful. I almost felt like I wanted to learn more about you and your style of leadership than, you know, as I was reading the different interviews that you did with the people. Why didn't you want to talk more about your leadership as opposed to other people's leadership?
Well, I didn't think people were that interested in my leadership, and I haven't accomplished as much as the other people I interviewed. So I thought people would be more interested in hearing from about Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or people like that. But I did want to point out to people that luck plays a big role in life, and I got very lucky, and hard work plays a big role as well. But failure helps. I failed a lot, and you have to pick yourself up. And so I want to remind people that if you fail, just don't go home and sulk. Go back and get into the arena again, and you'll pick things up, and things can work out.
Yeah, I'll tell you, while I agree with everything that you just said, reading your book, I don't know if your definition of failure is the same as mine, because I get where you talk about leaving the Carter White House, but let's just leave it at that for a second, because I would love to fail like you do. But I think the thing that I thought was so interesting is that the trait that you picked out as number one, and you just mentioned it, David, was luck. And I think This is something Lindsay and I were talking about this before the show. I found it so fascinating, the number of people you interviewed, and Jeff Bezos among them, that you and they talk about how luck is such a number one trait of success and leadership. And it was fascinating to me, because I would have thought, you know, the resiliency and all the other things that you talked about would have gone ahead of luck. Explain to me why luck precedes all of those other traits.
Well, think about it. How did you meet your spouse, for example? If you hadn't been in one place at one time, you know, you might not have met that person, and, you know, let's assume it worked out well. How did you get your first job? How did you get your current position? Suppose you hadn't met somebody that controls this this television setup here. How did you meet that person? In my own case, I met a few people that turned out to be very good in investing, and my firm went well. But if I hadn't met one person, I hadn't been to one meeting, if I hadn't gone to one dinner, I might not have met those people. So you can't just say that luck comes out of the sky. You have to make your own luck by going out, meeting people, talking to people, asking people questions. And I think that you can make your own luck. But there's no doubt that Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, all these people, they got lucky. There's no doubt. And they all admit it. And in fact, I think that's why a lot of the great people who are really successful are humble, because they realize there was some luck involved. Now, not every great leader is humble. I recognize that. You probably know a few that may not be humble. I never interviewed Napoleon Bonaparte. I never interviewed Alexander the Great. If you put the great behind your name, you probably can't be that humble, right? But, you know, I would say that generally the people I interviewed are pretty humble, and they realize there was a lot of luck involved.
Well, you interviewed some pretty amazing people. What are ones that stand out to you specifically, and why did you choose the folks that are in the book?
Well, that's a complicated question, because I interviewed maybe 100 people over the course of the last couple of years, and I now have to tell all the people that I'm sending copies of the book to that I interviewed and didn't put in the book that it was the publisher who chose the people to go in the book, because I don't want to say that I picked them. But I picked people who had a cross-section of skills and so forth. I didn't want people only in business, only in politics, only in the military, only in the arts. So it was a cross-section, and women and men and so forth. I think of all the interviews, I think Jeff Bezos was one of the most interesting ones, and he pointed out something I wish I had known. He said the key to his success is getting 8 hours of sleep a night. Think of all those years I didn't get 8 hours of sleep. If I'd gotten more sleep, I would have been more successful. Or he said he doesn't make any decisions before 10 a.m. or after 5 p.m. I wish I had known that. But Think Oprah Winfrey. Oprah had a broadcasting career, and she was basically fired in Baltimore and was going to be out of work. And all of a sudden, things worked out in Chicago, and she became very famous. And now she has the advantage of having a one-name kind of personality. Cher, Bono, Madonna. There are very few people that can get by with one name, and she's one of those people. And actually, her first name was really Orpah. Was supposed to be Orpah, but they got it wrong on the birth certificate, so they printed Oprah, and she stayed with it.
It's that luck again, David.
Right.
The thing that I find fascinating, too, about the Bezos thing was the story you tell in the book about getting an equity share in Amazon and then selling it. Oh. You sold it for $80 million. It's now worth 40, but it doesn't sound like you've done too bad since, so we'll overlook that. But the thing that I think you just mentioned some of the things you've learned, but let me ask you to do this. Pretend that 18-year-old David Rubenstein is reading your book right now. What's the one takeaway that you want the 18-year-old version of you to take away? Okay, very good point. The book is really written for young people to inspire them because we need leaders. A country isn't going to be great if it doesn't have leaders. And I want people to read the book who are young and say, I'm not a superstar. I wasn't a Rhodes Scholar, Supreme Court clerk, All-American athlete. But look at the people running the world today. They weren't those things by and large either. So you don't have to be a superstar in the first third of your life to be successful in the second and third of life. So don't give up. If you fail, keep working, and you can be successful later on in life.
I love that. As Sean mentioned in the beginning, you're a great leader in of yourself. After interviewing these people, was there anything that you wanted to take away from them and say, I'm going to change this or input this into my leadership style?
Well, I think I would like to probably, be a little more humble about what I've done because compared to what they have done, I haven't done that much. They're not much more successful than me, and I realize that I probably need a little bit more humility than I already have. And so obviously, when you put your name on a book, like I did, and you go out promoting it as I am, you can't say you're that humble. So I probably could use a little more humility, particularly when I'm comparing myself to these people. Well, David, I will say this. After reading it, you've been such a huge and generous donor to so many great causes. So I don't know that you may think that you need to be a little more humble. I'll leave that up to you. But you have been so kind and generous with your success and what you have given back to our country, our communities. And I don't think people fully appreciate when you walk into a Smithsonian or so many other museums around this country that are free, it's because of your generosity, your leadership in making it happen. So a big thank you on behalf of so many people in this country. And appreciate the book. It's called How to Lead. It's such a great read, and you've picked such great people. And thank you for sharing your time with us. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. All righty. Take care. Bye. Well, suspicion from the administration about the integrity of mail-in voting persists as several military ballots were just found tossed aside in Pennsylvania. Yet the media continues to ignore the evidence. Our company is here to weigh in next.